everybody. Welcome back to the Adult and Pediatric Institute podcast. This is a podcast where we get messy, we get real, and we talk about real life things. So, yes, I am still here. I am still around, but let me tell you guys, the summer struggle has been real. I am home with the kids on most days because if you live in a town like I live in, either A, summer camps are not necessarily geared towards your special needs kids, or B, they are crazy expensive. And so, thankfully, at our company, we believe that you get to be a human as well as an employee. And so, I've been able to kind of juggle both being a mom, keeping the kids home, and being a business owner. The struggle is real. On top of everything else, we had 4th of July and all of these other super exciting things going on in our country. And so I took a little bit of a break from the podcast. I will say, getting back into the podcast, I don't want to become one of those podcasts where I'm sharing useless information or I'm sharing really redundant information that people are not finding useful. And so I'm going to share some episodes moving forward, kind of intermittently. Either A, something big happened in my world, or it happened in the world or in our country, and I want to talk it out. B, there is an amazing human that I want to bring on to the podcast to get out in front of all of our listeners because I think that they're really going to help the community in one way or another, which that is what today is about. Or C, I come across a great resource that I want to share with people. So that's what brings us to today. I have an amazing person that I want to introduce to our community and our listeners. And she is someone that does a lot for the autistic community. And I think someone that can really provide a value add in the lives of some of our listeners. And that person is Patty Laushman. And hopefully I said that correct. Patty, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Nicole. You
Oh,
did. That was correct.
woohoo! All right, you are so welcome. I'm so happy to have you on here. So why don't we dive right in? Tell us a little bit about your company and how you got into this field and all the good things about you.
Sure. Okay. So I am the founder and one of the two head coaches at Thrive Autism Coaching. The other head coach is my mentor turned business partner, Jacqueline Hunt. And we have a team of highly skilled and highly experienced coaches, 13 of them actually, who work with autistic adults and parents of teens and adults. The focus of our coaching is always on improving the client's quality of life in whatever way they define it. So there's nearly always some form of skills training involved, whether that's executive functioning skills training, social and communication skills, daily living skills, or parenting approaches that actually work with neurodivergent offspring. And the way that I got into this was kind of by accident. I became a parent 17 years ago today, and
Oh, happy
yeah.
birthday to your
Yeah,
kid.
it's very exciting. It's
That
very
is
exciting.
exciting. And look at you, you're working on their birthday. Sounds like a true
Yeah,
working mom.
he's 17 and he just doesn't care.
Yeah, you're not cool anymore. I've
I
realized once they're
know.
like 12. I'm
Uh,
not cool to my 12-year
I
old.
know. I know. So he had basically never thrived in his life. At 5 weeks old, he started screaming 24 hours a day. And at the age of 6, he was diagnosed with ADHD and ODD, which, if you know anything about that combination at that age, is very, very scary for parents and it's not actually very helpful.
Yeah.
And then when he was 8.5, he was finally correctly identified as autistic. And through my parenting with him and my homeschooling of him, I have learned all of these skills that I now bring to my client work.
I love that. And that's very similar to how I got into this. And I'm
Really?
finding, yeah, the more people I meet, the more I'm realizing a lot of people in this industry are parents of children with autism.
Yeah.
And it was really, they struggled to find a good resource for their kid and struggled to
Right.
find help for themselves. And so they said, you know what? This isn't out there. I'm going to do this for the community and I'm going to create
Yes.
this. And that sounds like what you did.
That's exactly right, Nicole. I was undergoing a career change in about 2022 and was looking for something else to do. I thought I wanted to pursue mental health training because when we were looking for autism informed help, we could not find it. We were really,
Yeah,
really struggling. And so I thought I was going to go and get a mental health counseling license. And then I discovered autism life coaching was actually a field, and I would say probably a better fit for my personality. And I guess the rest is history.
that's so amazing. So, do you work with families in a specific area, like a city, or is it maybe through
No.
telehealth anywhere in the country?
No, we actually work globally. We have clients all
Oh,
over the
that's
world.
so
So
cool.
most of our clients are in the United States, and Canada is an obvious fit because we're in similar time zones. But we have coaches and we have clients all over the world. And because of the pandemic, many of us learned how to live on Zoom, how to exist on Zoom, how to work with others on Zoom. And so
Yeah.
I think there was this whole sea change where people started to realize that in some cases it doesn't work for everybody, but in some cases that virtual coaching can be very effective. And so, yeah, we work with people all over.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's so amazing and definitely a needed resource. One of the problems that I see with clients that we work with at the Adult and Pediatric Institute, because we do autism evaluations and we specialize in autism as well
Yeah.
as other neurodevelopmental disorders. And one of the struggles that I have, and I know other work colleagues have in this field, is a lot of clients travel to come and see us. They might
Hmm.
travel from other states, they might travel from across the state, all over. And finding resources in their area is really, really difficult. And a lot of
Agreed.
it, yeah, and the insurance is there, well, depending on the insurance, but the insurance is sometimes there to help find resources for the child. But then what
Right.
about the parent? Right?
Right.
The parent is really struggling. How do I parent this child? And how do I cope as a parent with a special needs child? And that's a scary journey and it's a lonely journey. And to know that there's people like you out there and your coaches with the Thrive Autism, that's amazing. And I will share your information with everyone I know,
Oh, thanks, Nicole.
including on the podcast.
Yeah. And, I think it's even harder for the families who have adult children who flew under the radar, flew under that diagnostic
Yes.
radar and ended up 17, 18, 19 before they got a correct diagnosis of autism. And once you're already an adult, all of those services that were available
Stop.
to my family
Hmm.
really don't exist at the adult level.
Yeah.
And if they do, insurance often won't cover them, which is really tough.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And then if they even have insurance, right?
Right.
So, I mean, even if they do have insurance, yeah, most insurance is not going to cover anything for an adult, which I don't fully understand that. That makes zero sense, but hopefully one day someone high up enough will realize this is ridiculous. Just
Right.
because they're an adult does not mean that their autism symptoms suddenly get better or go away
Exactly.
and therefore they don't need help anymore. And I feel like
Exactly.
it's a whole developmental stage that they go into that they need help, that even if they were diagnosed young and even if they did get all of the services, when they start to move into adulthood in that next developmental stage, that's a whole new subset of problems that are going to come up that are completely
Exactly.
different. Talk to me a little bit about the SBN parenting framework. Can you kind of walk me through what that is, how it helps families?
Absolutely. The framework, which stands for support, boundaries, and nudges, is part of a step by step process I created for helping autistic emerging adults activate their intrinsic motivation and move forward toward a more meaningful and productive life in whatever way that that adult defines it. I know parents tend to feel very powerless when their emerging adults get stuck. They may be refusing to leave their bedroom. They may not be making progress on college or career. Sometimes they're so shut down, they're refusing to interact with others who live in the same home. And this framework is all about the actions parents can take. And sometimes there's actions they should stop taking, and by
Mhm.
doing so, it creates an environment that encourages their autistic adult, their emerging adult, to get in the driver's seat of their life and start moving forward.
Okay. Let's say someone listening right now, let's say me as a parent, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. My 19-year-old daughter does not want to leave her room. She's kind of pushing back, and I don't know how to help her. And at some point, because a lot of parents in this position, they're also feeling I'm not going to be around forever. And so,
Right.
what's going to happen to my kid if they can't get a job? So, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And I reached out to you. What's one small thing that I could do today if I wanted to start shifting that dynamic at home?
Sure. So I would start with communication, because what's really critical is to create a relationship with them that is different than the relationship you had when they were a child. You want to move. So, we've been told for years that the authoritative parenting style is the ideal parenting style. It's emotionally responsive, but still provides structure and boundaries. What you need to do is shift your relationship over time into something that is more collaborative. All right. And for them to accept you as their collaborator, you have to have a mutually respectful and trusting relationship. And that can happen over time with the right sort of communication. So, I have some really basic tips for parents that I teach on the front end that are, pretty easy to implement, and I can share what those are.
Mhm.
So, the first thing you want to do is every time you want to start a conversation, it's really important, I think, to get their attention and wait to be acknowledged. Shifting attention from one activity to your conversation is often more taxing for autistic individuals, and waiting to be acknowledged rather than just demanding they shift their attention immediately is it's just respectful, and it increases the chances of them actually engaging with you. And then, secondly, there's something called declarative language. Some of your listeners may have heard of it before, some may not. I actually have a blog post about this on my website, and it's with lots and lots of examples for parents of teens and adults. Declarative language is a very low key and respectful way of starting a conversation, and it's less demanding than the way we normally speak. And what this does is it allows your emerging adult to maintain agency or a sense of control over their life. You're not just barking orders, you're inviting them to a conversation and they have the right to refuse. And that agency is really critical to activating intrinsic motivation. And then always respect their boundaries around when conversations start and end, period.
Yeah.
And yeah, so if you start doing those three things, you can kind of shift the dynamic of your relationship over time.
A lot of the tips that you just suggested strongly correlate with a lot of empathetic listening techniques and effective communication techniques. And so it makes sense. And I think sometimes you think about this stuff as a parent and you're like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. But hindsight is 2020.
Right.
Needing someone like you to say, well, no, here's how we're going to apply this in daily life. Yeah, you know that theoretically you want to treat them like an adult,
Right.
yet so many parents are still treating them as if they are 5 years old or 6 years old, yet
Right.
you're asking them to behave like an adult. And so that makes
Exactly.
so much sense as to why your framework would work for these emerging adults. Very interesting. Okay, so my next question is I want to get into your upcoming book, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
so exciting and I would imagine very nerve-wracking. Uh,
Oh,
at least it
you
would be
have
for
no
me.
idea.
Yeah.
This is, it has been. my Mount Everest, I think.
I believe it. I believe it. It's intimidating when you just think about writing a book because you think about that and you're like, oh my goodness, who am I to write a book? Like, no one wants to
Mm,
hear from me. But then in reality, books from people like you that are doing the work that you're doing and have the experience that you have, those are the books I think me as a parent, I can speak for myself, I would read that book knowing that you're living this life and you're meeting all of these other families and you're
right.
just so knowledgeable about such a, widespread area of autistic parenting for young adults with autism. So the book is Parenting for Independence: Overcoming Failure to Launch in Autistic Emerging Adults. What inspired you to write this book?
That's a great question. I thought I was going into the field of working with autistic adults.
Hmm.
And I would say about half the time I took on a client, it was a parent who reached out to me first. So I was talking to lots of parents of adults. And I made this really erroneous assumption. I assumed that because these parents had had their child longer than mine had been alive, that they had already figured out all these things that I worked so hard to figure out. And this woman named Susie reached out to me one day and she said, my daughter's 29 and I'm ready to kick her out of the house. She was doing fine before the pandemic. Then her employer shut down and she ended up moving back home. And 2 years later, I can't get her out of my basement. And, I don't know if I'm enabling her by not pushing, but every time I push, she responds in anger. And could you help me? Her daughter was not interested in coaching herself, but Susie
Hmm.
really wanted my help trying to help with her daughter. And I thought, well, I had never considered this before, but Susie was willing to take a chance and I was really committed to helping her. So I thought, well, if you tell me what you see happening, I'll tell you what I think is going on and what to do about it. And so she was my very first parent client and she only got through the S and B of the framework. And her daughter is doing so well now. She started telling me by the third coaching session, she came and said, this is working like nothing has ever worked. You really need to get this out there. I have read all the books, I've scoured social media, I've talked to other professionals. Nothing has worked until I talked to you and started learning these things. You really need to get this information out there. So, my next obvious step was creating the group coaching program that I have that has the same name, Parenting for Independence, so I could work with groups of families and not be limited to the number I could work with one on one because I was very quickly burning out,
Yeah.
very, very, very quickly. And so I, started my group coaching program that I offer 2 times a year. But then I realized, this is still not reaching a lot of families. And there's lots of families out there who can't afford one on one coaching or a group coaching program. And I thought, I really want to get this information into as many hands as possible. Even if you're a family who can't afford to buy a book, I am making sure that the book can be ordered by your local library. So you can just go to your library and say, can you order this book?
Oh,
And I've taken all the steps
I love
so that
that.
libraries can order the book. And so, really, my inspiration was to get this information into as many hands as possible because parents were telling me, this works. This is the only thing that's worked for us.
Oh, I love that, Patty. And you've like put so much thought into making it accessible because I've said this all along, and we created a foundation because of this concept of you shouldn't have to have money to have access to good quality care and
Right,
caring individuals. That's not okay.
right. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
oh,
And,
that's so cool.
Dr. Temple Grandin wrote the foreword for the book, and I had a short conversation with her about that. And I think it was not until I told her that I was going to make it accessible to libraries that really cemented the deal with her because she also feels very strongly that you shouldn't, this information should be available to everybody. And I've also
Absolutely.
And I'm also doing an audiobook because I know a high percentage of my audience is dyslexic and I want to make sure it's accessible for them as well. The paperback, we're using fonts that are more accessible um, than the standard paperback.
Oh,
So,
that's so
yeah.
awesome. And I love audiobooks, and I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say you have a great voice. You should do an audiobook.
Oh my gosh, Nicole, I can't believe you said that. So, I'm going to share something really personal right now.
Yes,
So,
please do.
okay. I was going to use an audiobook producer that a colleague used earlier this year. He was really happy with him. And I thought, why mess with success? I'm just going to use what I know has worked. And when I talked to the gentleman, he said, well, I produce, but I don't produce other people's recordings. And a friend of mine had actually convinced me. He said, you need to do your own narration. You need people to hear your passion and hear how genuine you are about how much you want to help. And so when I talked to the producer, he was like, yeah, I'm sorry, I can't produce your recordings. I only produce my own. And so after many deliberations, it was decided that my husband, who is a hardcore amateur audio engineer, was going to do my production. And so
Oh, I
he
love it.
worked with a friend of his who's a professional and borrowed some equipment and built this little studio in our basement. And we were downstairs this morning doing some test recordings. And, as I've mentioned, the book details this parenting framework I've created, but it also talks about my story and
Yeah.
some, really personal stuff that we went through. And during the test recording, I got to this place in my story where I was talking about one of my like deepest breaking points. And I started reading that part of my story. And it was like one moment I was reading my audiobook, and the next moment I was in that moment again years ago. And I just started
Yeah.
crying out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And my husband ran across the basement and hugged me, but forgot to
Oh,
turn off the recording.
oh,
So I thought,
that's include it in the recording.
oh my
I'll cry
gosh,
with you when I
no.
listen to the book.
No, no. So if
Oh,
you hear my voice starting to waver, that's because
yeah,
I'm telling you
it's
something
your
really tough.
story. Exactly. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I've struggled on this podcast when I'm talking about certain topics that are really personal or really triggering to me, especially when I'm talking about topics about my daughters and some
Yeah,
of the struggles that they've gone through. And
exactly.
my voice will crack or I will be fighting back tears. And I've debated, do I want to cut that out of the podcast? And ultimately, I decide to keep it. And I
Wow.
think it's because we get enough of the fake people
Sure.
on social media, maybe on TV, where it's very scripted, the
Sure.
messaging that they're delivering,
And
what
polished.
and very polished, exactly. And if they're supposed to be crying, they're crying at, you know, and I think the world needs more real people with real emotions because that normalizes it.
Sure,
It
sure.
would
But it
be
feels
really
so vulnerable,
unusual.
Nicole.
Yes.
It feels so vulnerable.
It does. It does, but that's okay. One of my favorite TED Talks is also coincidentally one of the most popular TED Talks ever watched, and it's Brene Brown's The Power of Vulnerability. And I really
Oh,
try to
I love
live by
Brene.
that. Yeah, I really try to live by that TED Talk of it's okay to be vulnerable, and the real strength comes from being vulnerable. And that's true bravery to put it all out there. And that's what helps people connect to you. And so I think you narrating this book and hearing the passion and hearing the emotion, it really helps with that connection. And those are always my favorite Audible books, are self narrated ones. I love those.
Nice. Yeah.
So, why do you think that some of the more traditional parenting books that, you talked about your first client, Susie, that she had read all the books and none of them were working? Why don't you think those work? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So, well, I have been down that road personally. I did all the things an overachieving parent does when their child is not thriving. And as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, my son started screaming 24 hours a day when he was 5 weeks old, and it really did not get better until he was identified as autistic at 8.5. And I read all the books, I did all the trainings, consulted with all the experts. Nothing worked. My husband and I are even in the video of a very popular parent training program
Oh,
that was an
really?
absolute disaster for our son.
Oh
But
gosh.
yeah, but what I discovered through my own research and experimenting with different approaches is that the traditional advice does not take into account the realities of what's happening under the hood, so to speak, with autistic individuals. So these parenting approaches are only looking at observable behaviors and then making assumptions about the child's character and motivations. And this is like trying to use the wrong phone charger to charge your phone. Depending on how it fits, you could end up plugging it into the port, but nothing happens, or you could try forcing it into the port and you end up damaging the port. And the same thing can happen with your relationship with your
Yeah.
child when you're using these approaches that don't take their reality into account.
Yeah, and it's difficult because a lot of the books that are out there, I think, are written by very educated, well meaning individuals, but not necessarily individuals that have lived this experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're written for the majority, the neuro majority, those whose brains are wired most similarly.
Yeah,
And when there is something different about how your brain works, when your perception of sensory input is different or your preferred communication style is different, those sometimes those approaches don't work.
yeah, yeah. So, where do you want to see this book go? Like, where, if in a perfect world, what would come from you publishing this book? Um, where would you like it to kind of take you? I guess is a better way for me to ask that.
Well, this book is not really about me. The book is really about improving. Now, I might get emotional. It's really about improving quality of life for autistic adults and their families. And I absolutely live for my client successes. There is nothing better than hearing that some goal was achieved or some young adult is making progress as a result of knowledge that I've shared. So, really, where I want to see this go, I would love to see suffering reduced globally for autistic individuals and their families. And ideally, I would love for it to increase understanding. You know, autism awareness is great, but I think until we have understanding, we can't have true acceptance. And I hope that my book is one piece of the puzzle of increasing autism understanding.
Hmm. Yes, there's definitely, especially in today's climate, a better need for that of understanding people with autism and doing away with some of the stigmas that people have or preconceived ideas of what an individual with autism is, does, says, looks like, so on and so forth. So I hope so
Absolutely.
too. Do you intend on doing any type of speaking tours or anything with this book? Is that on the future horizon for you?
I don't have a plan. That's a great question, Nicole. I don't have a plan for doing any speaking engagements. I have done speaking in the past, and if anybody would like me to speak, I can be contacted through my website.
All right, awesome. I'm a part of a support group, a parenting support group. So I might actually take you up on that and have you come and talk to
Okay.
the moms. It's a great support group that my friend had started, and it's Moms Empowering Moms. And it's, yeah,
Nice.
if we meet once a month and she brings in different speakers. So I might take you up on that in our little small town. But if you do end up setting up any type of book tour or anything like that, please let me know because I would love to post that on our website and our social media pages so that people can meet you and hear parts of the story and get your book and things like that.
Well, since it doesn't come out until November, people can actually pre-order the book now directly from me, and they get some extra perks for doing so, and they
Oh,
can learn about details on my website.
all right. So share that website with everyone because I'm going to go on it as soon as we finish up here so I can pre-order your book.
Yay! Okay, it's thriveautismcoaching.com/book.
All right.
So people who pre-order will get a paperback copy signed by me. They get access to a parenting framework reference sheet right away. That'll come within minutes of ordering the book. They will get access to a an online community that I'm in right now, giving updates about how the book publishing process is going, and I will also be doing a private live launch for my early supporters.
Okay, awesome. All right, so that website again, thriveautismcoaching.com/book. Is
That's
that
it.
correct? All right,
Yeah.
fantastic. And if someone wanted to sign up for your coaching program, would that be just thriveautismcoaching.com?
Yeah, that under the services tab, we list all the different services we offer. So there's one-on-one coaching for adults, one-on-one coaching for parents, and then we have a couple of programs. I teach my program called Parenting for Independence twice a year. And then there's a kind of a monthly membership that parents can graduate into to continue working on the program with access to me because I don't have any one on one coaching slots anymore. I just work with parents in my programs. And if
Okay.
they're in my programs, they do get access to ad hoc one on one coaching with me. And then my partner, Jacqueline Hunt, she has a new program that is going awesome right now. It's called Intimate Relationship Pathways. And just like my program, it's an 8-week group coaching program, but for autistic adults who are looking to develop friendships, develop greater intimacy, and it has lots of frank talk about sex.
Oh,
And
I love
then that
that.
program also has a monthly membership that people can graduate into for continued access to Jacqueline and continued work on the program.
I love that. That's amazing. I do like the Netflix show Love on the Spectrum. I love that show. I think it's so cute.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one of the things that I was really impressed with that they had brought on there was essentially the relationship coach. And so to know that you guys actually offer that service and you don't have to be on a Netflix show to get it. That's really
Right,
cool.
exactly,
That's great.
exactly.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
and we do it in a group format, so they develop this kind of built-in support community. So while they're going out and doing scary things related to dating, they have a built-in support group that
Oh,
they meet with every week.
and
It's
that's
awesome.
so
It's really
powerful.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Creating that tribe, that human connection and that support system is so powerful for people.
it is.
Awesome. So I do have so I'm going to ask you two more questions. One of them is what does your son think of this book and everything that his mom is doing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Interestingly, he wrote a couple sections for the book.
Oh,
So
cool.
one thing that I've included is the testimonial he gave to a physics camp he attended. And there's a whole story about that in the book. It was the biggest nudge I ever gave him, forcing him to attend physics camp the first time.
Yeah.
And then um, after I detail in the book the whole process of how I gave him that nudge, some parents might be curious to know what his perspective was on all that. And so I read that section to him, and he kind of wrote a few paragraphs on what his experience was and what advice he'd give parents if their child was in the same situation.
Oh, that's so
So
awesome.
yeah, so I've given him a chance to participate. He will be narrating his own sections of the audiobook, which will be really cool.
Oh, so
And,
cool.
I think, I've gotten explicit permission from him to share the details about his story that I've shared. And of course, I haven't shared everything, but I think he's really proud of where he is today because I think he recognizes how far he's come.
Yeah.
And I think he's proud that other people are going to benefit from his experiences.
That's awesome. And the empathy that you're teaching him is, he's going to carry that for the rest of his life of my story can help other people because I'm not in
Yeah.
this alone.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right. And then my last question, I always wrap up every one of these with this question. If you could give 1 to 2 pieces of advice to your younger self, what would they be?
Oh my gosh. Hang in there.
That's good. That's real.
Definitely, definitely hang in there.
Yep.
That's all I got.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a real answer. I think that that's good. That's a good answer because it's true, right? You're
Hang
looking,
in there. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Hang on.
yeah, just
And maybe buckle your seatbelt.
right, and just keep waking up. It'll be okay. Tomorrow's another day. That's a great piece of advice. It's simple, but it's real. I often tell myself that piece of advice. It's
Yeah,
gonna
it's
be
not all
okay.
rainbows and kittens.
Yeah, it's really not. Another good one I like is it's a bad day, not a bad life. Like it's okay.
Oh, I
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I
that.
don't remember where I heard that. I'm sure I'm stealing it from a book or a quote of the day calendar or something. I don't know. But I use
That's a
that
good
one
one,
all the time.
though.
Very similar with that hang in there. Like it's a bad day, not a bad life. Just get through it.
Yeah.
Just get through today. Tomorrow's another day. Hang in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for
And then
sure.
hope you don't screw up your kid and turn them into serial killers, right? I mean, it's like
Right?
ultimately, as long as you don't become murderers and you stay out of prison, we're going to take that as a win. We're going to say that's a win here.
It's all
We're
good.
going to manage our expectations. All right. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast and chatting with us. I'm excited for your book. Like I said, I'm going to get off our call here and I'm going to go to your website. I'm going to pre order your book. And again, that website
Awesome.
for everyone listening, thriveautismcoaching.com/book. And Patty Laushman with Thrive Autism Coaching. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your time that you gave us today.
Thanks, Nicole, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you to all of our listeners who listened in on this podcast. We can't wait to share with you our next speaker that we're going to have on here in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, go out and conquer your day.